Welcome back to Fast Market here on the Schwab Network. It's time for our cash tag segment. For that, let's bring in our next guest. That's going to be Megan Brantley, VP of Research at LikeFolio. Happy Friday, Megan.
Happy Friday, guys. Excited to be here.
All right, good stuff. Costco starting to consolidate, actually grinding lower here. I mean, it's been one of those trades over the last, if you look at a 3-year chart of Costco, dare to short this thing because it just continues to grind higher. Are you guys seeing any change in your data, which has, historically been pretty solid in this company?
Yeah, Costco is one of the names, at least in our universe, where we have it labeled as core conviction. And that just means that our data is strong, sentiment is very, very high, and it's in a level versus peers that we expect to see overperformance in the long run, and our view certainly hasn't changed. This is a company that is a masterclass at providing consumers value. Consumers are essentially paying a cover free to get in and then shop and spend more money because they feel like the savings are that good that this is an exclusive club they want to belong to. And I think that the key driver, at least near term in our data and what we keep seeing showing up in mentions and what we keep showing up just in the data are these upgrade mentions. And so, for a while we would look and we'd say, okay, how many new people are signing up for a Costco memberships? Because we know that, while it is, I think it's about 6% of total revenue, it drives about 73% of its gross profit. So this helps Costco provide those items that are really low cost. And now we're seeing signs that people are upgrading. So now, they've been a Costco member and they're splurging. This is a chart that I think is really powerful, and it's consumer searches for that executive membership, which is its highest tier. And a lot of that has to do with these perceived perks. So now Costco is so popular, we started to see a lot of consumers talking about stores were really crowded. They were having to wait in long lines. And now this perk that comes along with this membership is these consumers can now get in an hour earlier than regular people or with a regular membership. And so they're opting to pay more. I think this is double the standard membership just for that extra hour of shopping time in a bit of a less crowded store. So, what a brilliant model that Costco has created. And this is just the next step of growth that we're watching is Costco able to, not just attract and retain members at a really high rate, but get them into those higher paying tiers of subscription.
Megan, Costco taking advantage of how incredibly popular they are, and they are now they're almost like they're so incredibly popular, it's really hard to put a number on it. But, and here's why this is important, the valuation, even since it's down, significantly, $100 off its recent highs, the valuation is still pricey. And the 8% revenue growth in the last quarter, the loyalty that the membership gives, it's still one of those situations where we say in the show a lot, at some point I want to be long it, at some point I want to be short it. And their 55 PE versus like a BJ Wholesale that's a 24 PE makes it's so expensive in so many ways that they have to be virtually perfect, Megan. Do you guys ever look at things like, it's gone too far, valuation? No one disputes the popularity and quality of Costco, but it can't be along forever, Megan.
Yeah, you make very, very valid points, and we do look at this to say, okay, has the bar of expectations gotten too high for a name like this? And we look at, all of our different data points. We look at digital traffic, we look at app usage, we can look at sentiment, and at least for us, this is just a name that's really hard to bet against right now, even at this valuation. I think this chart is really interesting. This is app engagement, and you can see that on the far right, just the massive uptick. And while digital sales, this isn't the main driver of sales at Costco. Costco is kind of like a discovery experience where a lot of people want that in-store experience. They want to be able to go grab that rotisserie chicken or go explore through the aisles and see what they can find. But we are seeing an uptick in that digital engagement. We're seeing a lot of consumers who are now opting to use that same-day delivery service. And so I think that Costco is, exploring these other avenues of growth drivers. And we think it's also just getting started in terms of international expansion. If you look at the international growth, I think those comp sales are rising at about double the rate of US comp sales. So I think that there's still room for growth here in this name. And at least when we look long term, we always say our best indicator of the long term stock performance is consumer sentiment levels. And consumer sentiment levels for Costco are historically high and rising, and higher versus peers, higher versus Sam's Club, higher versus BJ's Wholesale. So for us, when we're looking for those data points to show that near-term weakness, it's just really difficult to find. And so, it is valid. Valuation is certainly high, but at least in our data, this looks to be justified.
Megan, when you look at this, this stock, do you guys have a sense for the overall consumer at this point? We get retail sales data next week. They just released their numbers for June, comparable sales up nearly 6%. So those are still continuing to move to the upside. They just hiked their prices for their membership. Do you guys see any inclination that maybe the consumer is pulling back a little bit? Because, Costco's not immune from a slowdown in the economy. Are you guys seeing this in any other names, or is Costco still the gold standard here that it doesn't matter?
We're seeing a bit of resilience here. I think that that's something that we've been watching. I think that that's something that Landon even may have hit on earlier this week when we talked about deltas. We thought, maybe there's a little bit too much fear baked in, and we're seeing, some surprising overperformance there. And I think that Costco is a name that it's already catering to a higher earning consumer. It's already catering to a consumer who isn't afraid to pay a $65 cover fee to just get in the store to shop for a year. And so I think that helped insulate it from some of those pressures, and then also just the value it's providing. Just as an anecdote, one of the headlines that we were reading, some of the mentions, I think that there was a Lululemon lawsuit because Lululemon said, your dupes are so good, they're competing with our brand. And, what an advertisement for the Kirkland brand of Costco that they're able to provide a $110 product for, I think, around $10. So this is a tremendous value, even for those consumers who, may be trading down in their athleisure wear, to a more affordable brand within that Kirkland brand. And obviously, this is just one small example, but I think that that's the brand value that Costco is building around its name, and why we see sentiment so high, because consumers feel like they're getting a fair price for their items.
All right, great stuff. Great data. As always, Megan, have a great weekend.
Thanks, guys. You too.
All right, that's Megan Brantley, VP of Research at LikeFolio. Kevin, I've looked at a chart.